Peace, family. Peace, warriors. This is Dr. Sadiki Che Baye, the host of the Men's Room Talk Show, coming to you every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Family, this is the place where you're going to hear the voices of our Black leaders, our Black men, our Black heads, providers, protectors, the ones who are doing positive things to hold the fort down in our community. Too often the Black man get a bad rap. You know, he's even forgotten or taken for granted or even ignored. But this is the place where we're going to acknowledge our heads here, our leaders, the ones who's really doing what they need to do to fulfill their purpose. Once again, family, we have a special guest on today, and the founder of the African American Museum in Atlantic City and in Dr. Martin Luther King Community Center in Newtonville, New Jersey. It's an honor and a privilege to have our elder on the Men's Room Talk Show. He is a wonderful, wonderful warrior, and he's very knowledgeable. He's a historian, a curator, and amongst other things. Wow, I mean, it's just a list goes on and on that is really, I just can't say it enough. It's an honor and a privilege to have our warrior, our example, our leader, our teacher, our example, the Honorable Elder Warrior, Mr. Ralph E. Hunter Sr. from Atlantic, New Jersey. Welcome, Warrior.
Hi there, Doc. How are you today? It's been my pleasure to have the opportunity to meet with you and your team, as well as your studio audience watching around the world.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, brother, more than you know. Can you share with the listening audience, let us acknowledge this brother and support this brother, because he's gone over beyond the call of duty as far as I'm concerned. He's always busy and doing things and making sure that everything is in divine order. So Elder Hunter, Can you share with us, a little bit about where you come from and what led you to become and get involved in what you are today?
Well, like Will Smith said, born and raised in West Philly, up the top, up around 60th Street. Went to Brooks Elementary School, Shoemaker Junior High, Overbrook High School. Had a great time growing up in West Philly. Hung out at Haddington Recreation Center. Had great times in Fairmount Park throughout my life. There's a little local park that we went to. It was called Carroll's Park, right at 59th and Gerard Avenue, where we would gather and play our little games and have our fun. But West Philly was dear to my heart. But the beautiful part about growing up in Philly, I was privileged to have the opportunity to understand the importance of history. And history was pretty important because I remember as in junior high school, going down to the Philadelphia Museum of History and Culture, going to the different locations throughout the city to see art and galleries. Growing up, it was really, really touched my heart in such a way that I said to myself one day, I'm going to have a house full of goodies, all kinds of beautiful black goodies. And I've been blessed to be able to do that. I was a collector, I guess about 45, 46 years ago. I had traveled to down south. I had taken a 5-year sabbatical looking around for African American memorabilia. And I'd gotten down to North Carolina and I'd gone into an antique store. And when arriving there, I asked the clerk, did she have anything that was black or African American? I would purchase it. And she's looking around, she's not finding. She said, oh, I remember. My boss had me put something in the back room because they don't want to put it out. They didn't want to offend any of the customers. And I said, well, whatever it is, I'll buy it. So at that time, I was in the hunt to try to find about 500-600 pieces of African American memorabilia. So that was the very first item I purchased. So raising up in Philly, a lot of the teachers that we had were not people of color. And I remember quite vividly growing up and being in the kindergarten in West Philly, and the teacher reading a story to about 90% of the class, which was Caucasian. And the name of the story she would read would be called Little Black Sambo. I was very much offended by that story because at graham cracker time, I became their Little Black Sambo. So it offended me to no end, and I was really, really touched by that. Lo and behold, I get down to North Carolina about 45 years ago and go into this antique shop. And the lady comes out of the back room with this thing that she was not able to put out because they didn't want to offend anyone. It was a book called Little Black Sambo. Now I'm regressing again, being 5 years old, 4.5 years old, being in kindergarten, and the kids thinking of a black person as Little Black Sambo. So I started not to buy the book, but I said to myself, I'm going to buy this book and get it off the market. So, so I don't know if anyone's ever heard the story of Little Black Sambo. It's I can repeat it in my sleep, and sometimes I dream about it. Not because I just own lots of copies of it, first editions. The story was written by a lady by the name of Helen Bannerman, and she had written this story while traveling on a train to India for 2 girls. And the story was about this little black boy who mother makes him a new jacket, new pair of pants, and has his umbrella. This is pretty good from Philly. And he was able to be in a position to say to himself, well, Ralph, why would you want to buy this book? I said, well, buy the book, get it off the market. So the story goes and talks about him walking through the jungle, and the tigers come out after him. One grabs his jacket, and puts it on his hind legs. Another grabs his trousers and puts it on the front two legs. Another grabs another garment, which were his slippers, and puts those on his ears. And the last tiger grabs his umbrella that his father had left at home. And he puts it on and just around and around and around. And all of a sudden, they decided to take off all little Black Sambo's clothing and put it alongside the tree and start chasing each other around one tree in particular. So they went around this tree so fast, faster and faster and faster, and they went around so fast they started to melt, and they turned into a big mound of something yellow that one would put on one's pancakes or waffles or French toast. So there this mound of butter was. Little Black Sambo sees that the tigers had melted and turned into butter. He gathers his clothing, runs home, and tells his mother what had happened. Going through the jungle comes his dad, has his urn on top of his head. And he takes the urn and he sees the mound of butter. He gathers together, gets home, and asks his son what kind of a day he had. Said he had a terrible day out there, that they all attacked him and they were going to bother him, eat up his food. So, well, what would you like to eat? Little Black Sambo says, well, I could like to eat pancakes today. So he eats 100 pancakes. Probably it's like eating 30 pancakes. The moral of the story, and how I like to lead in when I'm doing a special program such as this, is to be able to tell the story from its inception, to let folks know how the museum got started. And that was the very first item that I purchased for the museum. On that 5-year trip, I was able to purchase about 3,000 pieces. I spent all of my children's inheritance on Black memorabilia. It was, I really didn't need it. So that's the story about little Black Sambo. So then I asked a question of people I'm telling the story to. When they were growing up as kids, sometimes their parents would make pancakes, waffles, or French toast for them. Then I would ask them, what kind of syrup do they put in their pancakes? And 90% of the people would answer this by saying, and your mama. And then jokingly, I would say, I and your mama's at home. Oh, and just go crazy laughing. It's really, really fun. Well, that's how the museum got started. And that's what got me started collecting and falling in love with African-American memorabilia. But the real reason I bought it to get it off the market. So I said to myself when I was walking out of that antique store that I'm going to buy every little Black Sambo book I can for the next 5 years, and have a big bonfire and burn them all up. That was my intention. But it went on to become the collection that now is housed at the African American Heritage Museum in Atlantic City at Noyes Art Garage, which is a subsidiary of Stockton University, and in our other locations in the town, an African American town over in New Jersey. It's the upper part of Atlantic County. It's called Buena Vista Township, and there's an African American community there. It's been around for a long time, and that's called Newtonville, New Jersey. And there we have a lovely museum. Right now, we have a great exhibit. And it's called Thank You for Your Service. And Thank You for Your Service talks about the Tuskegee Airmen, the Black Cowboys, all the soldiers who fought in all the wars, as well as the Coast Guard. It's just an amazing exhibit. And that exhibit will be up until the beginning of February in that location. And in our location in Atlantic City, we have an exhibit. It's called The North Side. I don't know if anyone of your listening audience ever saw a program called Boardwalk Empire. I was a consultant for that series. I think we got 19 Emmy Awards for that particular series. It was quite a compelling story. And it told the history of 2 Atlantic cities. One part of Atlantic City was pretty much a plantation. It was an area where it was redlined, where African Americans were forced to live. And there were redline communities all over these United States of America. So when our forefathers left the Deep South, coming north to be part of the Industrial Revolution, they would land in these different cities, whether it was the South Side of Chicago, it was Gary, Indiana, or it was Newark or Harlem, New York. There was areas and pockets of people coming from the Deep South, coming out of the cotton fields or coming out of the tobacco fields or even the farmland, and to come here to be part of the Industrial Revolution. and that was the big wave that came north. But once they arrived here, they were forced to live in these communities. And so many of those communities were on the other side of the tracks. And on the other side of the tracks is where they pronounced these communities to be the African American communities. And they didn't do well from the beginning. But after the first 15 or 20 years, these communities started to become really, really explosive in such a way that people in those areas were in a position to start opening up their own businesses. You got to think back that the first set of entrepreneurs in the North were women, females, and they came north, and it was a lady by the name of Madam Sarah Spencer Washington, who owned a company called Apex Hair Care Products. And in her company, she taught the first wave of African American women how to become entrepreneurs. And it was really, really a great time because she had schools in Baltimore, Washington, Chicago, all over the East Coast, where she taught those women how to open up your own business, buy my product, and you make a decent wage. You become a hub of your own business. So that was part of the redlining things that went exceedingly well. There were towns throughout New Jersey, as we're local, a town called Lawnside, New Jersey. It was a town incorporated by African Americans, and it's still incorporated today by African Americans. It's really, really amazing. We go through South Jersey. There were towns called Lawnside, there was Chislehurst. There were towns up and down the corridor. And that's pretty much how Atlantic City got built and how Atlantic City was able to have all of these little African American towns all the way from Philadelphia down to the shore, because Atlantic City was built on the backs of African Americans. And so what would happen, they would not travel all the way back to Philadelphia when they were building the railroad or building Route 30 to get to the shore. And so what would happen, they'd stop off at these different towns. Atco was a town. There were little towns throughout the whole area, all the way down to the shore, where the African American communities would stop and keep going from there. And eventually they went to Atlantic City and they built that town. They built its railroad, its boardwalk, its beaches, its hotels. Everything was built to the backs of people who looked just like me. It's pretty amazing to be able to gather all this information, put this history together in such a way that we built a new exhibit. And the new exhibit we have, it's called The North Side. And it tells that a compelling story about southern New Jersey and all communities around the East Coast and up north that have strong African American communities back in the 20s and 30s, but they don't exist today.
Excuse me, Elder, can you turn your picture back on?
Oh, I do that.
How does
Okay. The left hand.
It says low power mode, and then it says close, and it says
No. Listen, just go to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Next to the microphone, there's a camera. It has a red line through it. You need to click that.
Okay, I'm not seeing that.
Okay. It's in the bottom left-hand corner.
Bottom left. Okay, we're not getting it.
It's a picture of a camera. You just touch
No, it's all black. The screen is black. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Don't worry about the screen. Do me a favor and put your cursor all the way to the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Or put your finger there at the bottom left-hand side of your.
I'm touching it as we speak.
Okay.
And
You don't see a mic, camera?
No, I don't. Okay. I told you I was. Oh man. Okay.
Don't just be calm and there you go. You got it.
We got it.
Yeah,
You got
it. You know. See, we're gonna make you a tech man also.
Thank you.
That's beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you can continue about the Atlantic City building of the railroads and the
Yeah, the real, yeah. Okay, I had started to try to say that the town was built on the backs of people who look like me. There was a group of people who came down the railroad, and it came from Camden City. And its first group of people to Atlantic City didn't come in an automobile. They came on the big iron horse, which of course was the railroad. And that railroad had to get built. So African Americans were a large part. The conductors on that railroad who built that track to come all the way down. That track is still in existence today. It's been replaced a couple of times, but that path where that track ran is still the pathway to Atlantic City today.
Wow. Can you explain or share with us, Elder, after our people built businesses and entertainment centers and so forth and so on, did the white folks come to the area, or they were still separate?
Well, it was Jim Crow laws back in those days. It was called separate but equal. Let's say Atlantic City had two different towns. One was the south side of town, the other was the north side of town. The south side of town is where the hotels were. That's where the ocean was. That's where the beaches were. The north side of town was at least four, maybe 2.5 blocks back from the ocean. It would be the ocean, then it would be Pacific Avenue and Atlantic Avenue. And Atlantic Avenue was the separating part of the north and south side of the city. And the African Americans lived from Connecticut Avenue down to Arkansas Avenue. So that was an area where some 30,000 people of color were forced to live because that area was deemed red line. But there are red line areas like that all over the United States of America. And then the same thing took place there, where in Atlantic City, in particular, there were some 13 African American doctors on the north side of Atlantic City serving some 30,000 residents of the city, because these people all worked in the hotels, they worked in the restaurants, and they worked on the railroad, they worked in the hotels and throughout the area. But if those folks were not there, the city would have never survived, because the people who could afford to come to the town were people who were much more fortunate than the people that were working there. So, and in doing so, the African Americans were able to build their own community called the North Side. And not only did they have 13 black doctors, they had 7 millionaires. They had some 34 guest houses that had a liquor license in them. They had hotels, restaurants, and of course the great beauty parlors throughout the city, from places like dry cleaners to ice houses, you name it, whatever it took to make a town run on the north side. But the beautiful part about that, those dollars actually stayed on the north side. The dollars were earned there and they stayed there. Today, what happens, if the money is earned in a section of a city, it doesn't stay there because it leaves town. Because the people come to town who make the money, they don't come back and live there anymore. So those dollars they're fleeting dollars. So it's historians would explain to you, and if you had more time one-on-one, I could sit down and talk to your group at maybe at a different time and explain the economics of being self-contained. Self-contained is a great thing, and I really, really love my 5 forefathers who came together to put that system together. Because a town like Atlantic City was bigger than the great things that were happening out in the West. You know, people talk about what happened and when they had their great towns where they had the stock market, Black Wall Street, and things of that nature. But Atlantic City was almost 4 times the size of Black Wall Street because it had so many millionaires, and it was located on the East Coast. You know, not more than 100 miles from 125 miles from Washington, 120 miles from New York, 60 miles from Philadelphia, and all those areas were around Atlantic City, and it was called the world's playground. So people came from all over the country to come to Atlantic City to go to places like the Steel Pier. But more importantly than the Steel Pier, there was a place called the Club Harlem. Club Harlem in Atlantic City was a pretty important area because there was a street there with nightclubs and bars and restaurants and hotels on it that was really second to none. And when the African Americans who came there to play, they couldn't get a gig over at one of the hotels because those hotels would permit Black entertainers to come in. So when the white entertainers wanted to see Pearl Belly or Count Basie or one of those great luminaries in the entertainment fields, they would have to come over to the north side. And they brought those dollars over to the north side, and those dollars stayed on the north side. They didn't have to go back to the south side. I heard a little bell ring. I don't know what that was.
That's people coming on.
Okay. So that's kind of how you envision what took place. And of course, Atlantic City once again had African Americans could go to any beach at all in Atlantic City, and they were quite welcomed until 1927. And what happened then was the city fathers got together because they got complaints from the hotel owners who own the hotels up and down the boardwalk, and they complained that their guests weren't coming back to Atlantic City anymore because there were Black people in front of the hotels. They weren't going to come back anymore. And so right away they had a meeting they held it right outside of Atlantic City in a little small town called Galloway Township. And at that meeting, they decided let's remove all the Black people from all the beaches in Atlantic City. And let's force them to go to the beach in front of the Boardwalk Hall. Boardwalk Hall is owned and operated by the city, so the city could then declare that area a safe place for Blacks to go. And that beach became a very, very important beach. We had some great folks on that beach. Dr. King was on that beach. Sammy Davis was on that beach. Fannie Lou Hamer stood in front of that beach. It was just an amazing place to have come to seeing what was happening in Atlantic City. There would be tens of thousands of people would come here every week to support the nightlife, to support the restaurants as well as the hotels. It was truly, truly a mecca of entertainment, of lifestyle, and of the restaurants as well as the hotels did an outstanding job in supporting it. It was part of the Green Book, if anyone goes back. Atlantic City had an area of some 34 stops on the Green Book, and it went up to almost 65 points at the end. It's really, really was an amazing time. So when I first got off that bus and came to Atlantic City, and saw all those folks who looked like me that had their own businesses. There was a Black police department, white police department. There was a Black station. But in the Red Line area, they had a station that was Black. They had a police department that was Black who surveyed and took care of the folks on the north side of town.
Wow, family. I hope you are hearing all of this very valuable information about Atlantic City, because we've been duped into this thing that, white folks was, Atlantic City equals white, and we already know that, Frank Sinatra and all of them, they kind of slipped their way over to the Black areas, because they know who the real entertainers are. They knew who are the real people, hospitality, and so forth and so on. So before we go into the break, Elder, can you share with us a little about, what is it, the chilling circuit?
Oh yeah, well, that was part of the entertainment. Yeah, well, what took place was when Sammy and Duke and Pearl and Lena would come to Atlantic City. They would come in the summertime. It was like a 14 weeks, the summer season, from the first week last week in June until the end of Labor Day. They would come to Atlantic City. they would come in droves, thousands and thousands of people would come down. So they couldn't get that gig over the south side of town, so they would come to the Club Harlem. They'd go to places like Daddy Lou's. They'd go to places like the Top Hat, the High Hat, the Silk Hat, Perry's Bar. I can name them off by the hundreds. It was really, that's where it comes for the entertainment. So the chillin' circuit was that if they came into the city and they got booked in town, they would play with the north side. So the people from the south side of town would come over to the Club Harlem, to Grace's Belmont, to Wonder Gardens, or any of the other bars over at Atlantic, the other side of Atlantic Avenue, and come and visit these great entertainers. So just think for 1 second, if you wanted to see a great act and you were staying at one of the big white hotels on the south side, they wouldn't book them. So the only place they'd get booked was on the north side. So they would have busloads of people to load up at the hotels, and they'd bring them over to Kentucky Avenue. They'd get out of the bus on Atlantic Avenue, they'd get in line, and they'd come into the Club Harlem. They had a show there, it was called The Breakfast Show. The Breakfast Show was pretty exciting. It was at 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. So guys like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and those guys, once the 500 Club closed, and the Jockey Club, and the Paddock Club closed on the south side, they would come over and jam over at the Club Harlem. And that's how it got its power, and that's how it received its base, and that was part of the chillin' circuit. So the chillin' circuit means that I can't play in Detroit this week. It's summertime. We're going to go to Atlantic City, and we're going to jam in Atlantic City. So those guys who played the chillin' circuit came here for that summer period, and after that, they went back to St. Louis. They went to Gary. They went to Chicago. They went to New York. They went pretty much all over. But the Club Harlem was bigger than the Cotton Club in New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Man, see, I heard a lot of stuff, man, that I was definitely not aware of, and I'm sure that the listening audience wasn't aware of a lot of that, but we need to hear these things from our people, you know, because we're going to tell the real truth about things. Your picture went off against Elder, but I really appreciate you sharing all of that, and you're a true historian, and you are making us aware of some things that that our people, man, we had. There you go, you got it.
Yeah, I have a low battery. I think it's what's happening. I didn't check.
Yeah. Yes. To show that we can even call that what do you call it? What they had in Kansas. Wait a minute. Where we had wealth and everything all across the country.
Yes.
And we didn't have to
Black
wait.
Wall Street.
Yeah, Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yes. And we had that all over the place, man. They just want to highlight one place.
Yes. It was right here on the East Coast.
Yes, sir. And I really appreciate you sharing all of that, brother. But you know, the time is going fast, and we got to get you on here again. But we're going to take a 5-minute commercial break where I share with you some raw food for thought to help stimulate, motivate your mind to go to another level. See, this is what we call transformation. And transformation is you have to be willing to go into areas that you've never been in your mind in order to go to another level. But too many of us are fighting to stay the same, feeling that I don't have to change. I know enough already. Or I finally made it. Okay, keep in mind, family, that it's easier to get there than to stay there.
Shout hallelujah.
Because maintaining is all what it's all about. So we have to, in other words, family, we have to be willing intentionally to prepare ourselves because preparation is the key to everything. We have to be willing to prepare ourselves. You have to do that. Prepare the challenge so no one can catch up. We understand that on these jobs and some of these religions misdirected us. So that's why everything is personal. We have to study to show ourselves approval, and that's why I love the Elder Raphael Hunter Sr. for blessing me to even be in his presence. Really. I mean, I've always looked up to the elders. I'm from the South. I've always honored and loved the elders. Nothing but deep respect. I feel those because that gives me a reason to even struggle, because they already have some things going that I don't know nothing about. But it's a motivation to me, because sometimes the road seems alone. I mean, that more to keep going, no matter how things seem, because guess what? Everything is in divine order. No matter how it seems. And all challenges are nothing but opportunities to go to another level. So embrace the challenge. Embrace it. It might be a little painful or hurting or uncomfortable, but guess what? You can be blessed. You're blessed through your efforts. No efforts, a little effort, a little blessings. Medium effort, medium blessings. A lot of effort, a lot of blessings. That's life, family. We have to understand this thing that we are in, life. Not from an emotional point of view, but from an understanding point of view. But first, you have to know something. In order to know something, you got to first think. Thinking, knowing, and understanding. Because if I know something, I don't have to think. So that's to get you to knowing. Everything is based on process. And the process that we should be coming from is a frame of reference of our ancestors. So you won't be vibing off of emotions, fooling yourself to believe that, hey, I feel better, I must be better. But don't forget, feelings come and go like the weather. But one thing about a wise man, he goes by what he knows. And keep in mind, as I always say too, that man means mind, a thinker. All males are not men, and all women are not, and all females are not women. We have to qualify ourselves. That's why we had the rites of passage. You had to qualify yourself to pass through the rites of passage. But what do they tell us? You're 21 and you're a man. Don't be deceived by somebody else's standards. We are lions. We're not house cats, even though both of them are cats. We are eagles. We're not chickens, even though both of them are birds. Family, we are the original people, and there's nothing greater than the original. A lot of things have happened to us, and they flipped us upside down, inside out. But we got to work hard and smart together to reclaim our godhood. Because if we're the children of God, is that what Jesus said? You see me, you see Father, for I and Father are one. Things I do, greater things you can do. So we must embrace that family that's coming from an ancestor. Don't you know all of those characters in these holy books our ancestors, they're experiences that are based on cause and effect. We can transform our minds into any of them. But you got to learn the power and the laws of cause and effect, because all of that is correlated. Where we are today, family, all wasn't our fault. But guess what? It's our fault anyway. Be more honorable and more representing of the ones before us. And give the elders, the ones who's here, put a smile on their face. They can prolong their life. Don't talk about how great they were once they're gone. Let's give them what they deserve while they're here. Later transitions also. So we are actually the ancestors having a human experience. And when a newborn baby comes on the scene, that's an ancestor revisiting. You heard that come from me many times. I want you to get it, family. And if you don't accept it right away from me, take it and study it yourself. Find out for yourself, because you would appreciate it more if you did it yourself. Go for it. I encourage you to go over and beyond the requirements of this system, this capitalistic system that has many different agencies and different kind of things that's back. Like these schools, these jobs, even religion. Sometimes people are so religious they forgot to be spiritual. They got us stuck in the first grade. We have to study to show ourselves approvable, to go to the next level. That's what you want. We have to, sometimes waiting on the energy is too low. We got to tune it up. Tune it up, family, and be grounded. Because if the electricity's not running, click on and off as it pleases. So, family, this is what I'm saying, that we have to transform and renew our mind to honor the ones before us, so that all of that hell that they went through is not in vain. And that's why I appreciate the elder who is our main guest today. And with that in mind, family, we're going to go back to the elder. I'm going to introduce him. This is Elder Ralph E. Hunter Sr., the founder of the African American Museum in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and in Newtonville, New Jersey.
Okay, you got me back again. I'm here and I'm smiling. I'm happy. I'm delighted to have this wonderful opportunity to spend with your audience today. It's just makes my heart feel good knowing that there's some folks out there, or perhaps when they visit one of our locations, either in Atlantic City or either Newtonville, or either have us come to your location. Our traveling museum travels to schools, universities, churches, large groups. So we set up a traveling museum right in your location. And it's pretty cost effective for you to do that, because you don't have to live either to Newtonville or to Atlantic City. We can come to you. So I get to about 100 schools, university, and church groups every January and February. So we are servicing Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and New York. So we're available for you. All you have to do is go to our webpage. It's at ahmsnj.org, and you can find out about it. And today happens to be Giving Tuesday. It's reaching out to you. And if we're not there, the organization, before it was midnight tonight, I would just like for you to make a donation or represent some organization that's done well in your community. It doesn't have to be us. If it is us, that's okay. But this is Giving Tuesday, and see it in your heart of hearts to try to reach out to some organization. If it's a soup kitchen, if it's a battered women or a rehab house or a church or whatever you choose, help out Giving Tuesday. I think you owe it to yourself and to your ancestors. So let's make that happen before midnight tonight.
Oh,
All right.
Really appreciate that. Family, you can turn on your mics and show the elders some love, some questions, observation, show the elders some love so that we can definitely show him that we really appreciate him in spite of all the hell that he went through and all the hell that all of us going through. So the elder is really to fulfill his purpose. And I really look up to the elder, and it motivates, inspires me to go to another level. So turn on your mics, family, elders, some love. I know this is our show, fam. We don't even have to, I always say this, we don't have to get permission. This is our show. This is an opportunity to communicate so that we can hit in one another once again. So to the plate right now and show the elders some love.
Hi, Mr. Ralph.
Yes, my sister.
What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Terry. I'm from Atlantic City, but I live in Atlanta, Georgia now. And I chimed in right when you start talking about Chicken Bone Beach. And every year, I mean, we had loads of family that came to our house every year. But it saddens me to see that beach is just not even the same anymore. But it saddens me even more that Kentucky Avenue looks the way it does. My grandfather came down just about every weekend. He was a drummer at Club Harlem. And I've been trying to get pictures of him. He's from Philly. His name was Johnny Williams. And he would come down every weekend sharp as a tack. Oh my God. And just the music and the energy. And I went to go see my first play at the Club Harlem. I'm 60 years old. My mom took me to a play there when I was about 14 or 15 years old. But it just saddens me to see that street. I mean, that was the pride of Atlantic City for Black people.
Yes.
So thank you so much for bringing those memories back.
Me and reach out to me, and maybe we can find some information about your family playing down at Club Harlem. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much, Mr. Ralph. Thank you for all that you guys are doing. This is just amazing. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you too. Yes. Thank you for your comments and letting the elder know that it's for us who pay attention. You know, and you're bringing back memories in some of us, and you're schooling most of us on the realities of that whole area in Atlantic City. If it wasn't for us, there'd be no Atlantic City really, and none of that stuff going on. You know, matter of fact, all across the country. Yes. So who else want to show the elders some love? You know, and
try to get on quick because my battery's ready to go, and I don't know how to hook up.
Okay, short and sweet, family, quickly.
This is Harriet Atkerson, Philadelphia, and I want to compliment on the collection of memorabilia. And it's astounding, and it amazes me that I go to Atlantic City every year, and I never knew that there was a Black History Museum then. He's been there 10 years in Atlantic City. So I am thrilled, and I was on cloud nine just walking one place together. There's one in the one in Atlantic City that I absolutely loved, and that was the stove that was owned by Billie Holiday. And I was told it was one of the first gas stoves. How did you come about that piece?
Well, a guy from the Club Harlem had it. His name was Chris Colombo. He had stored it. He had gotten it from Billy when he was playing up in New York. And he brought it to Atlantic City and he had it stored in someone's basement. And that person was ready to go to a nursing home. And I found out it was there. And I got myself a truck from somebody. And 4 guys went over there and hauled it up out of the crawl space. And we cleaned it and we cleaned it. And it looks good today.
It's
It's
gorgeous.
in excellent condition. Excellent condition.
Yeah.
Man, we really appreciate you, brother, more than you know. I'm telling you for it all. You know, go ahead, Queen.
There was one other item in the museum in Atlantic City that brought back for me one almost just like it, and it just brought, you just make me feel so warm to see that again, you know. But it was just amazing that you had there for everyone to see, because I don't think we realize the journey, the fullness of the journey we've been on. I mean, and how well we're doing right now. And we're doing that because of the wonderful contribution of people like Mr. Hunter, who is collecting all these things. It's absolutely amazing.
I think his phone must have just died.
Yeah, right. Yes. So I like to urge everyone to send him a donation, because he has these students that he's running, and it's a lot, but they are so magnificent. The quality of his pieces is just splendid. He has dolls. He has a collection bed, cast iron beds. So the scene on the beds, I hit it. One is I can't remember. The one is like alligator eating a black baby. I mean, I think it's absolutely astounding. It really it says a lot about what America thinks or thought of us back in the day, and some of that they continue to think of, which we see in the present system that we're dealing with right now. Those attitudes are fed by that history that was a lie, and that was abusive, and that took advantage of our hard work and so have our children see this, take them to these museums and let them see that. It's very important that we see that. He also has a large Aunt Jemima collection, which I've had that large collection for a long time. And there were just so many wonderful things.
Tell them about the original Aunt Jemima.
This was interesting, which I did not know. He has a slight he has what do you call it? It has a film that he made up some works of his and some of hers. The story about Aunt Jemima is that the original Aunt Jemima was a white woman who was pretending to be Black. And as the image, they start using Black women to fill that role. But the original Aunt Jemima was a white woman, just like they had minstrels in blackface back in those days. They also had this woman pretending to be a Black woman. So that's the way it was very revealing for me. It's just amazing. It's really amazing. Oh, and one other point that I found out was that in, Atlantic City have the beauty contests every year. They've been having for street, and one of those patents was what's I'm trying to think of her name. I couldn't think of it then. I can't think of it now. Hmm. The one that played in talk show.
You said Barry?
No, not Whoopi. The one that played with her in that movie. The one that had the talk show for years and years and years. The rich person.
Oprah Winfrey. Whoopi Goldberg.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah
Thank
Winfrey.
you. Yes, thank you. I don't know why, but she's in one of those contests, and they picture her when she was in one of the. She didn't win. She was in that, and I thought that was really interesting. How much of our lives back then was centered on Atlantic City. Some of the entertainment and all the progressive things. So they had thousands, not thousands, but hundreds and hundreds of businesses. First, everything in those just makes sense. And it details what stores were where. So it's really worth it. If you're ever in Atlantic City, please stop in and take a look. And if you let him know ahead of time, he'll be there to meet you. But his staff is able to do a job and explain everything. I mean, really, really, really pleased. Not only did we get a chance to, in his other museum, not only did we get to meet just minister and some other people who work and help to keep. And the second museum had a lot of African art in it, which I was very pleased to see.
And pictures. And don't forget, one of the brothers that were there, he was actually got over there, had that
with that when they burned down that section of Philadelphia.
Yeah. The move people. Yeah, he was actually the bodyguard of Wilson Good, and we talked, and we're going to get him on the show also. He's anxious to get on the show. We had talked, and definitely the show, because he was this issue, and that this director Leo hometown in Virginia, because of what went on up here, all of our Black children and all that were killed. If there was anybody else, man, I'm telling you, there'd be no end to raising hell. Because if you do a white or a child wrong, right, and you're here forever. What we do is march and go home, and that's it. We got to do better. We got to do better than we got to make a point of freedom is not freedom is taken.
Right. You're right. To know how this dates. I know it really goes back. The majority of stuff starts with the freedom of our enslaved population.
1800s.
Yeah, the 1800s. It moves forward. But there's so many, the irons that we use to iron our clothes, some of the first models are old cast iron irons, the egg beaters, and some of them look so strange now, because when was the last time we used it? Just so much there. And pots, they picked them up. And I remember my grandmother using some of those on her cast iron.
You use two hands to pick it up.
Yeah, so all that just brought back a lot of memories. Absolutely.
Well, I can relate to a lot of that coming from Virginia, and a lot of memories came back.
Yeah.
As far as all of that stuff, the community, everybody lives in the community, the teachers, the politicians, doctors, lawyers, everybody lived, everybody was. And I even worked for teachers in elementary school. I worked for at least 3 of my teachers, helped clean their yard and everything. We had a sense of community, common unity.
Right.
See, this is what is not, this is when we split up and got this so to carry on this that's when all hell broke loose. We became a bunch of individuals. And now the punishment, I believe, is look at what our children are doing.
Yes.
We have to set up a create an environment for them not to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the things.
Keep on pointing the finger, talking about keep blaming them. Come on, they're children. Didn't they say all children are foolish? Well, what do you expect? Go ahead.
Yeah. One of the things that I loved about seeing how well dressed people were, knowing that they were so industrious and they had some wonderful ideas. Oh, Terry just said that the lighthouse in Atlantic City was built by our people. You want to talk that to you can.
I was told, now that's what I was told. Now I don't have proof, so I can't say it. So I have to do some more research on it. But I was told, and I was like, isn't that funny how nobody ever told us about all these great things that our people contributed to Atlantic City. But I also know that wasn't there a Black woman? She was like, she developed some hair products. She was a millionaire, but she brought the hotel.
Yeah, he spoke on about her. Madam
C.J. Walker? Was it C.J. Walker?
No, it was another one.
No. But he said that she set up she taught people. She had a school and she had opened schools all along the East Coast for all of them how to start a business. And she sold all her products to all the schools and the businesses. You know what I mean? She was almost like a manufacturer.
Right.
Yes.
And so this is what we need today. We need our own schools, our own businesses, our own everything. We got to stop being beggars. No one respects beggars.
Right. Yeah. Pam is telling us that there is a PS just on this WWO American Heritage. So he's documentary. Get more information. Thanks, Pam. That's really great.
Thank you. Mr. Hunter is a great person. I'm telling you, all the way around. He's great.
I didn't realize that was him until somebody said Hunter, and I was like, oh my God, Brian's dead. It's been so long since I've seen him. I was a little girl since the last time I saw him. Wow. Okay.
Born and raised in West Philly and moved to Atlantic City.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The fact that you knew him, that's really wonderful. That's really wonderful. And he's such an easy person to get to know. That's what I absolutely love about him. Yeah. You know, but he does need help. So we have to do what we can.
He needs our support. We need each other to support each other. It's almost like we have to be our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper.
Right.
Yes.
We used to be that way, but we stepped off from it with attitude. I ain't gonna raise my children like I was raised because I didn't like that. So, but we went too far with it, and then we lost complete control.
Yeah.
So we got to go back and get it. Sometimes you got to go back and get it.
Right. Well, this is a great place to go back and get all the information you need about our history. And I've never been so fascinated by the information about Atlantic City and our contribution to that city and how well Black people lived back then. They were really
please visit these museums when you go to Atlantic City. Please do that. As a matter of fact, when you first enter Atlantic City, once you pass Atlantic City, look at the signs once you get to just before you get to Atlantic Avenue. On the right-hand side, it says African American Museum. A lot of people miss that because they're so busy wanting to go to the casinos. I got to lose my money because Everything you win, you're gonna give it
Yeah.
back. Right? So, you know, so we have to be. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you this story too. I asked people in that area, where is the American Museum? About no one knew, and they live right across the street from it. But we have to understand that the African American Museum is in Stockton University.
Inside.
Inside Stockton University, in that most important section of that whole building.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was all about, I had to meet up with the elder. You know what I mean? He was excited, I was excited, and that's how we got together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
he recognized
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
everybody in great journey, and it's an honor and a privilege to present the elder and his journey so that we can contribute to him sticking around by being acknowledged. Because we can cause a person to want to stick around.
Because I get so tired when people talk about what our Black men are not doing. I mean, they are every minute of every day, state all over the country and the world. But it's important to support our Black men, because if we don't, if we allow the white society to take away from us, who's going to protect us? Who's going to protect our culture?
We're going to
Now
protect
we
the
have,
children.
and our children, our families. But one of the things that is very, very prominent in my mind, because I was in Atlanta and I were Black men. They were wonderful. I don't know anyone. As a matter of fact, my uncle had to leave town because he beat up some white person. My family said, "You got to get out of town before you get beat up, before they lock you up or whatever." But I just never ever. I don't have any memory of weak men South. So when people, one of the buttermilk bottom, know how Black men cope with that system of oppression, because they were clever. They did things undercover. Like, you won't give me a job? Well, guess what? I'm going to make it. And they took care of them. I did not know you in their home. It's very important. We let our children know is God chose that Black man first. So we cannot allow the society we live in to denigrate our men. We cannot allow that. And they're taking our boys, like, and our men, and now they're taking our girls and locking children up at age 14, 13, 14. And they even, that's a potential that were arrested. And who does this? Yeah. And when did it start that schools called, instead of calling a parent? I mean, that should be outlawed. Call the parent. You have no business calling the police on any child. It's ridiculous.
Can I interject something?
Yes, sir.
Understand the real purpose of school. The real purpose of school that was created is of the. These schools are not an extension of us. They're an extension of somebody else. So we cannot expect them to tell us who we are. Because if they tell us who we are, they have to expose themselves. And they're not going for that.
Okay, well, one historical point I want to make here, because I love history, and this is one of the points. The school system that we have was started by Black people, because we started training our kids as soon as slavery was over. That keeps being laid aside. after they saw that we were getting good educations, then they took over that system. Written down. It's all written down. And they told themselves because they wrote it in books.
I went to Charles Houston Charles Houston Thurgood Marshall. So we don't know a lot of these things. We know names, but we don't know what comes behind those names. Don't forget, name means nature. So we have to look at the nature that's behind it. Don't throw somebody else pinned on a chicken to teach us that we're eagles. Are you for real? When eagles eat chickens? Come on now. We got to do better. Improvement. But I got a good job. Such thing is a good job when you're in this capital and there's nothing but plantations.
Yeah.
No such thing as a good job. That's why they say God bless the child without his own. First
That's
of all, got his own mind.
And that's why it's so important that we support, like, money we balance before we can get their hands on it. We have to learn the economics of success
and the power of economics.
Yes, exactly. And that's something that people knew back then when they had all these Wall Streets all over, Black Wall Streets all over the country. And that was like taken away from us because we were intimidated, taking loans away from us. They took properties away from them, burned up our properties, tore down properties. And if that didn't work, they built a highway through it. So we just have to be more caring so we'll know where we're going and where we have to go in order for our children to be freer and on top of their game.
So we have to come from a frame of reference. The reference is before us, but too many people finding fault in the ones before us. And that's why we became rebellious, and all hell broke loose some more, because when you read the book of Genesis, when they turned their backs on their forefathers, that's when all hell broke loose. And we are continuously doing that. We have no respect. We got to gain more respect for one another. We talk a lot of love stuff, and that's why Tina Turner say, what love got to do when you don't respect me? Respect always the foundation to all relationships. The stronger your respect is, the more you can build on it. And then you get the love part. Because I never heard love until I was grown. Because all we talked about down south was respect. And so we represented respect. We didn't pick and choose. That's what we represented. And you better. And one thing about community is a structure where children have no choice other than what the parents give them. The children are all over the place because they don't feel connected. And that's not their fault. Right. That's the ones before them. We took that for granted. And look at the results of it, and we end up blaming the children. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
They should know better. How should they do when they never told better?
Right. I want to thank you and having a warm thank you to Mr. Hunter for being on the show today, because it was one of the best. I really love that information, and it just drips from his lips like water. It's great that he has internalized our history so much. Yeah. I thank you, Dr. And darling Terry, it was wonderful to hear you grew up in Atlantic City. Isn't that fantastic? And I will look up that lighthouse information. I will look that up. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you to the audience, each and every one of you, for participating. And I know, please, the elder Ralphie Hunter Sr. for us participating to give him a reason to continue on and to be our warrior, our leader, our pace setter. See, of and feeling his. So, for example of a real man.
Yes.
Creator for him, I think the ancestors for him.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, family, you got to keep in mind to continue to stay strong and keep your faith where it belongs. Life is for the living. Continue to live. And I just so do your best. You got to know when to know. How do you know when to hold them? About a fool sees everything the same. And a fool is a child. So we have to, a fool is not an age. It's a child is not an age, a child is a mentality. So also keep your lights on and keep them bright at all times. Don't always put a dimmer on. You can always turn it up. You can always turn it down, but it's always on. As long as you're in charge.
Right.
Right thinking, right giving, eating is holistic. Let me say that again. Right thinking, right giving, and right eating is holistic living.
Amen.
Let's give that child a way of life, family, and live, and live, and live. This is Dr. Sadiki Che Baye, your servant and host of the Men's Talk Show. Have a blessed evening, have a blessed life, and have a happy new journey. Peace, Hotep, Baraka, Shalom, Assalamu Alaikum, whatever. All of it means peace. Thank you. See you next Tuesday.
Thank you.